Luckily, like the point I was going to bring up was the connections are being made now because, doctors have access to AI and ask a quick question. Hey, how might the microbiome be, impact this condition on a patient? And they get the answer right away. Whereas, 20 years ago, they had to look up in their old medical books. They didn't have time for that. So now suddenly we've compressed the time to learning so much that people who do have really good understanding of, say, medicine can suddenly figure out how food and how social and how everything connects together. The three of us, now we're making these connections here through, being on YouTube, and so that gives me hope, right? Like, um,
We're still in the
it's
minority, unfortunately, but it's getting there.
yeah, even though there's lots of reasons to be sad and angry right now, there's hope, and so we can call that part of complexity too, is that we can carry two things that seem to be conflicting as true at the same time, and not call them, opposites.
By the way, speaking of which, you said about doctors and AI, actually, and microbiome. Did either of you see the news clip about how levodopa, the mechanism for levodopa and Parkinson's, they figured out that levodopa was actually killing parts of the microbiome? So now the recommendation is to screen the microbiome. Did you see that news clip? So it's
No.
actually, these things are going to start to enforce because the microbiome connection with Parkinson's has been around for a few years. But now that they know the actual medication that was being used for Parkinson's and it was actually targeting some of the microbiome that would interfere with the dopamine process, which made it even worse, right? So now the recommendation for screening is becoming part of allopathic medicine. I think that is going to expand it further. I don't, because I've
Well, you're
heard
you're
that some
talking
of the
about the
schools.
findings now, Judy, I think that are being found everywhere. Responsiveness to chemotherapy.
Mhm.
It's under, direct or indirect influence of the microbiome. Metastasis in cancer under direct or direct influence of the microbiome. SSRI administration,
Yep.
for example, remodels the gut. So it's a
Yep.
more indole serotonin pathway friendly, decreases certain inflammatory guild relationships in the gut. It's
Mhm.
not simply, right?
Yep.
Simply a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Yep.
It has a much more complex ecosystem that it affects. And this is exactly what you're talking about with pharmaceuticals. And we now know at least 50% of pharmaceuticals given in polypharmacy have direct antimicrobial action in the gut.
I think that's
Right?
actually
So
more
they
than that.
they have strategies that suppress
Right.
certain taxa. That's just, I don't care what it is, rosuvastatin. I don't care if you're taking any oral thing, it affects now the microbiome
Including
guild relationships.
toothpaste.
And the drugs they think somehow might be working through that and then have a secondary action physiologically that happens inside the body. It's actually very interesting to
Yes.
see how these things, this new filter layer, actually has an effect on the outcome.
Well, and then
Well,
there's
and
more.
historically, you'd have, did the medication work for the patient? Yes or no? And in many cases, it didn't. Well, they didn't know why, right?
Right.
And so now we're starting to understand the why. Oh, because there's certain bacteria in the gut in one patient that breaks it down, and therefore makes it not
Or
available.
biotransforms it or something like
Right.
that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the message isn't that the drugs are necessarily bad. The message is that, well, maybe there's a more integrative approach here to make the drugs work
Personalized medicine.
better.
Back to personalized medicine again.